Welcome back. Are you worried about cybersecurity and fraud? You should be. Joining us today is cybersecurity expert Andre Boysen to offer some easy to implement tips to protect yourself. Andre, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Sybil.
So what is cybersecurity? What does that mean?
It's a complicated term, but its meaning is quite simple. It's a method for services to tell what's the difference between what's real and what's fake when you're online.
So protecting things. It's like the security part's good and cyber just means cyberspace.
Is this real Sybil or fake Sybil?
Ooh, I'm real today. And what about fraud? How do they go together?
Fraud, the definition of fraud is using deception to gain a benefit of some kind. So that's the definition of it. So by definition, when you go to a service the first time, they've never met you before. So when you're online, how do they tell the difference between real Sybil and fake Sybil? It's a hard problem.
How do they?
Well, they ask you a lot of questions about your own life. This is the hard part. I'm Andre Boysen, and I can't pass the Andre Boysen tests. They ask me questions about my own life, and I don't know the answer. And so the challenge is the crooks have this information. They've garnered it off the dark web, and they get the answers perfect 100% every single time.
Oh my gosh, so the crooks know me better than I know myself.
Exactly. They don't have to remember anything, and you're trying to remember what kind of car did I drive in 2006.
Oh my gosh, that's scary. So what do they use this information for?
Ultimately, the goal is to take over your identity, to get a benefit for themselves and steal it in your name. And so it could be a line of credit, it could be signing up for a new service, getting a new cell phone on a plan, any of these types of things.
So how do I know if I've been compromised? How do I know if there's 3 or 4 other Sybils out there pretending to be me?
The short answer is it's hard to know for sure. But there are ways you can check. So there's a site out there called Have I Been Pawned? And if you Google that term, Have I Been Pawned? You can find out if your email address appears in any of these data breach databases. And that's just a clue. That's not going to allow you to remedy the situation, but at least you'll know. But here's an interesting thing. The site called Information is Beautiful catalogs how many data breaches have been out there. 8 billion identity records have been stolen in the last 2 years alone.
Whoa, 8 billion.
8 billion. When you consider half the world has no identity at all, that means the rest of us have been compromised twice.
Wow.
The crooks have your data. So you should just assume that's true and behave accordingly, which is be suspicious of things when you sign up for them and be watching for things that are trading in your name.
Okay, that is just scaring the daylights out of me. So what can I do to protect myself? Because when I think about it, if someone's pretending to be me, but it doesn't negatively impact me or my life, maybe it's not such a big deal. Well, it's still a big deal, but what if they use that to affect my credit rating or steal my money? Those are the things I'm worried about.
Yeah. So what the crooks do is use information they find off the dark web to try and do what's called a password reset on your accounts. So where did you go to high school? What was your favorite cat's name? Your best friend's name? And these types of things, which aren't really secrets at all. Anybody who knows you knows the answer to these questions. So what they do then is they use that to take over your email account. And once they've got control of your email account, then they go to the bank and say, I forgot my password, which sends an email to your email account, and boom, they've got your bank account now. So
wow.
The first thing you want to do is make sure that you use a reputable email provider. Google, Apple, and the large ones all have good security features in place.
Yep.
And an important thing to add into this is something called 2FA, or two-step authentication. What it basically means is having your password alone is not enough to get into your account. You must also possess your cell phone. And that makes guarding your account that much easier.
You know, I've had that. And at first, when two-factor authentication came out, it was kind of a pain in the butt because I'm just trying to log into my banking and then I've got to wait for a text message and then I got to punch that in. But it's saving my bacon.
Yeah, nobody liked seatbelts when they came out, but we all recognize they're better than the alternative you get in an accident. And that's the right way to think about 2FA.
Okay, so what else can people do to protect their email accounts or their information? So
a second strategy I have is I have 3 email accounts. One is for work, and then I have 2 personal accounts. My first email account is my primary account. It's the one I give to friends and family and services I really care about, like my bank and my government services. I use it for that alone. All the other services in my life where I'm going to sign up and I know they're going to send me marketing communications, a lot of stuff I don't want to read, go to my secondary account. So what's good about this is that that's the one that always shows up in the data breach records, my secondary account. But if I see a breach notice in that secondary account, I know it's fake and I don't care.
Okay.
So it takes all the noise out of it.
Well, you know, working in financial services, there is a number of fraud attempts we see on a regular basis where people will hack in to your email. They will use that email to send an email to a financial institution and request money.
I'm
Now,
stuck in Bahamas.
I know.
Please send money.
But you know what's really scary is they actually know that you are in the Bahamas because they've read all your emails and they saw that you just went on a trip.
Exactly.
So they can even sound like you when emailing in. And that's why a lot of financial institutions, most if not all, require also a verbal consent before they'll transfer money, or that money can only go to the bank account that they have on file.
Yeah, so that's the right remedy for where we are now. But let me just pose an interesting question. Why do we have so many data breaches?
Why?
The answer is because crooks can make money from the data. So how do we stop the data breaches?
How?
The answer is that we've got to make the data worth zero to the crooks.
Okay.
How do we make data worth zero to the crooks? We make sure that simply possessing information about you is not enough to take over your identity.
Oh, great.
That's where we need to get to. That's the path that we're on, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so that simple task of having to verbally confirm the person is who they say they are is one small little step to help make that information worthless.
Exactly. But just an example of how this works in the real world, like when you take your credit card and you present your card at the terminal, the risk of fraud there is nearly zero. But when we go on the internet, the merchant didn't get to see your card and the risk is much higher. So here's the problem is that today, all of this identity, knowing the things about you, is very simple to do. But as soon as you have to possess something that only real Sybil has, like your phone, it shuts down the crooks. And so that's just one element of how we're going to make this safer and simpler at the same time.
Okay, so make sure you protect your emails. This is a lot of information to absorb. Andre, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.